Hello everyone, my name is Dakota Franson. I am the specialist of the strange. I put together this little program so that way you can hear directly from me. I know that there's certain people who've heard of glimpses of my stories and they've been wanting to hear more, so they listen to the podcast, but sometimes getting a chance to really share everything gets to be kind of difficult when it's easy to distract. And there's a lot of easy distractions. So, there's a few of you who've reached out since the first video in this little side series dropped, expressing some of your concerns. In fact, I was in a short little meeting before recording an episode yesterday with, let's just say the conversation ended up being a bit more mindful than I was expecting. But that's why we reach out, right? Remove all expectations, so there's always a little surprise. And it really gave me a lot to think about. In a good way. I will say this. I know that there's a few of you that are that have been trying to say, Dakota, you need to just let it go. The situation with my father is fucked up as it is. Clearly it's over. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to do the things you get to do today. And that's very true. I honestly don't know if my father were to ever get out of prison and just be walking down the street one day if I would recognize him. I did reach out at one point. Thought I mentioned this in the video, but I also got to admit the first episode had some weird. Basically, the sound was completely taken out of the video for some weird reason, and I had to redo the whole thing. I did reach out to him, say I understand what made him the way he was, what led him down, the choices he made. That for what it's worth, I forgive him, knowing that I'll likely never see him again. He's likely not getting out of prison because of the choices he made. And as much as, I'm the oldest sibling, I want to be there to, help keep an eye on my younger ones. A mentality I know that it's been left over from having to play surrogate father in certain areas. It is what it is. Also, part of the motivation for when I started to go public, almost coming up on 13 years ago. In fact, by the time you guys see this, by the time this video drops, the weekend before on the 22nd was actually my 13th year anniversary from when I got my first official start in the public eye. I pre-record these so there's as very little distraction as possible, so I may pile up videos just to get them out there, but don't fret, the information's going to be all there. I've done my best to let go. I've acknowledged that I'll probably not really hear from my siblings down the line. Part of the motivation when I started going public is, as much as I wanted to walk away from UFOs and ghosts in the past, something keeps drawing me back in, and that way, being that I've gained a lot of the traction I did, maybe they could come find me. Maybe even siblings that I didn't know I had, which is pretty high probability. I think I tracked all of them down, but that's another story for another time. But it brings up a lot of good points. There are, as a whole, there are a lot of people who are going to have to get over some pretty intense issues, especially with everything that's coming. Right now, with all these political fights going on in the public eye, only seems like they're trying to drive the situation worse, you know? There's a random little TikTok, and the sound that was attached to it made a very valid point. The people who try to say they hate you and rally up the troops to say, get everybody to say they hate you, the truth is, all those people likely hate each other. But the one thing that actually brought them together is you. Maybe not brought together for the right reasons, but unfortunately, those who choose the path of destruction of others and of self, they fuel the ones that are meant to go out and try to help others, do what we can to help others. I don't tell the stories to try to gain sympathy. I will admit some of the remarks about people trying to say I've been lying piss me off, but it's also in the same scope that they want to try to say that, oh, we should be there for each other mentally, and yet just because someone is a little different, they won't accept them into that cliche. Those are remarks we gotta kill. We gotta kill BS reasons to hate. If there's a genuine cause and you know an individual is causing harm and you can prove it, yes, absolutely, take action. I'm not doing this to make money. As much as I would love to turn it into a full-time business. That is not my motivation. It's something I'm good at. My personal motivation, above all, was to try to understand my situation. Whether or not my daughter was my daughter. Why did she come forward like she did? And thirdly, if that was my daughter, who the hell's mom? And on a little side note, because I'm a man, and I will say I try to behave myself, but as a man, I had to wonder if the mother was hot. And yes, she is. She is gorgeous. I'm a lucky man. In that sense, and everything else as well, I acknowledge and accept that the things that happened had to happen in order for me to get in the right place. Some of you may recall how I mentioned that I had a grandmother, my father's mother, who said she could talk to angels. Naturally, I was a little skeptical. I try to be objective about these types of things because, let's face it, 99% of the reports out there are likely BS. However, when I actually had a chance to physically talk to her, not face to face, she's out in Georgia, if I remember correctly, and I'm in Idaho, and let's just say that she knew way too much detail to just be some random schizophrenic lady, as I was told she was. And I'll be honest, in retrospect, after dealing with everything I've dealt with on the supernatural end, I don't think it was angels she was necessarily talking to. They may have been in the mix, but something my grandma told me was that part of the reason why I have these inclinations is because part of my soul contract, if you will, the deal I had to make in order to come down to Earth, was to be a type of protector, to try to help people going through an absolute rough time. And after taking the head off of a C car, you can imagine what I meant. Before coming to Earth, there was a lot of you got to realize something about me. There's aspects of me that may seem like I'm an old soul. And because, of this crappy facial hair and the fact that I shave my head, yes, I do actually shave my head. It's receded down to here, but if you look carefully, you can see it. Despite what Christopher tries to say. I know I look older. I know I act older. But I'm only 27. And believe me, don't, and if you're laughing and feel like you want to say you're sorry because you thought I was older, don't be. I'm used to it by now. It only gets embarrassing when say there's a girl I'm trying to flirt with and things seem to be going well, then she realizes I'm actually younger than she expects. The number of times that happened, oof. That's the only, well, that's a lie. It would embarrass me when I would go out in public and be mistaken as my own mother's boyfriend or husband. I had to let when people thought I was her brother let go because, like I said during the Elena interview, my uncle and I look like we could pass off as twins. But anyway, back to what I was saying. See what I mean about me getting distracted? Oy. Part of my situation that allowed me to take part in the Star Seed / Envoy program, whatever you want to call it. Yes, I had family in Lyra who were affected by the Lyran Wars. We were refugees that went towards the Pleiades and settled near Alcyone. It's my understanding that my wife's family, my in-laws, for lack of a better word, they were close friends with my family. We'd known each other many, many, many years. And it was, I keep, I actually had a recent visit to my in-laws on Sirius B, about a little over a month back. Basically, it was a reunion now that the area was safe to go back to. Everybody who had ties to that region was going back to visit family that was still in the area. For me, my wife came by to pick me up so we could take our youngest to go meet her grandparents for the very first time. And I'm bringing this story up because it brings a lot. It's a recent revelation of mine. And I'm also going to follow up with something that a lot of you've been asking me with. So pay attention to the sound in case I'm getting so focused in trying to figure out what the hell the cats are doing and what I'm trying to say that I missed something. I feel something's here, but just acknowledging if you hear something, see something, let me know. Anyway. My oldest two, it's my understanding, I had them before I came down. My daughter was already around and my wife was pregnant with our son. And we took part in efforts to help the rebels on Mars take back their planet. Some of you may recall that Elena Denon, she talks about how Thorhan, there was a particular instance where she saw Thorhan helping transport weapons to Martian rebels, trying to get them some help. It seems that my wife and I, we had close ties with Thorhan, a lot of Thorhan's operations. So when you made the recent trip to the moon base, my wife was there too. My kids were there too. My oldest two have actually enlisted within the Federation. I don't know their exact rankings. To be honest, we didn't care. We were just people doing a job, and our titles and stuff like that didn't mean anything. We cared about the work. So, to our Sirius B, we had a chance to go back for a bit. And the in-laws actually decorated a bit. There was a lot of the buildings, the way the glass works, they bounce through like crystal. It's absolutely gorgeous. They decorated because they knew where I have been, down here. It was honestly felt amazing. And the interesting part was my mother-in-law, she went to ask how my father was. I was like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, didn't your father also deploy on the Envoy program? It started to click for me. It was something, I feel like I'm getting something messed up. She looked at me and said, hey, Dakota, how is your father? She's like, what do you mean? I could see my wife. She actually started to get a bit nervous when this question was asked. She was just trying to say, she was kind of trying to signal, kind of like this, thinking, but it already came out. And her mother-in-law just looked like, yeah, I heard your father, he went to Earth. That he was supposed to help you in. Then I got to thinking about it. It started to click, and my wife realized, got to the point, it's like, might as well tell him. So she looks at me, and she says, first off, Christopher, pay attention to this. No, it's not Chris. But think carefully. Your father did go to Earth to help you. Then I got to thinking back to after I rescued those kids and the sea car ended up getting decapitated. There was this man. I wanted to go back to talk to my family, but they already heard about what I'd done, and threats were already being made against their safety. And apparently, out of fear, they managed to convince the Sicars that I had bolted after it happened. That they had no clue where I was, and I needed to get out as soon as possible before more happened. It got heated, but then there was this individual, this male figure, who just looked me deep in the eye. He just said, Valerian, you need to go. Just go, bud. It's not safe now. Go, run. So I did. And that's what affected me the most. When we got back to the Federation, apparently I was very early in my enlistment. I was part of the rebel factions. I knew of Akfaru. For those of you who asked, I knew of him, but We did have some passes in the wind, but I don't recall any direct communication. When I went back to the Federation, my wife was there. She already knew what happened. She was there waiting for me. And I guess best word at the time, the commanding officer, I don't believe it was Orhan. I could very well be wrong, but he said, take a few. Take a few. Now, it's going to be your choice what you do, but now you know the truth of what needs to be done. When you're ready, there's going to be some work for you towards other places. I wasn't necessarily in trouble for what I did, but I had to be moved for my own safety. So, sounds like that my focus started to be directed towards the Sol system. And there were parts where I worked with secret space programs. Before taking on an envoy mission. So for me, yes, there was part of a Sol contract, lessons need to be learned. When it came time for me to start my deployment, I had to know why it was so easy to fall for those traps, to succumb to fear, and how come it was so easy for the Sikar to invade, for the Tal Shiar to side with them. I just had to know. So part of my deployment assignment is there's a world that is being focused on. There's a lot of focus towards this planet. There was already efforts to try to work from within. Some of your kind from Salihara have already been involved. So I started taking up operations here to focus on Earth. So when it came time for my Starseed deployments, I would recognize enough to be able to identify when I had outside help. Little did I realize is that my father from back on Talihara something happened to him. He volunteered as well, hoping to reconnect and try to help me. Because I was one of those, young and angry types. We knew the situation was wrong. We wanted to fight back. We didn't necessarily understand why the world was unfolding the way it did. But he knew that I would probably need some help to get myself focused. He was worried that apparently he was aware of some of the conditions around my assignment. We had brief communications where I said I was going to take part in the envoy program. and he got involved as well. They managed to work it to where he would be my grandfather in this life, my mom's father. My daughter didn't know. So when my father was taking his last breaths of life from when cancer started to take him, my daughter came to try to offer emotional support. And I was able to, because she was my daughter, she snuck into the room where he was. I was in another room trying to help keep the dogs and younger children out of the way of the paramedics so they could get to my grandfather because he died at home. She offered to let me use her eyes to be able to see his last moments. And well, during his last moments, he said, "You need to get that little girl out of here." My daughter Olivia, she was not expecting to be seen by anybody but me. About 4 years later, I was on a riverboat cruise in Paris. Rain was hitting on and off, so I had the top deck of the cruise to myself, just watching the light show. So it was a little over a week after the Brussels subway bombing. Because when I first got there, they had the Eiffel Tower lit in the flag for colors of the flag for Brussels. Believe me, you could just feel the tension in the air for obvious reasons. As I was on this riverboat, all of a sudden I felt this tap on my shoulder. Now, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'7". So my first thought was I was standing in the way of somebody's photo and they were going to ask me to step aside. I looked over my shoulder and said, "Oh, sorry." Then I recognized the voice, recognized the face that was saying, "Oh, you're okay, bud. I needed to talk to you." My grandfather was standing there with my daughter. I honestly can't believe I'm starting to realize all this. I asked them what they were doing there and said, "Well, Dakota, you're starting to break free. You're not needing us as much anymore. So we're not going to be popping around as much. We have other things we need to take care of. But not to worry, we'll always be in communication." My grandfather disappears. I ask my daughter to stay for just a minute. It's like, if you're not going to be showing up around, does that mean your mom's coming? This was way before I even thought of starting to look at things from the extraterrestrial angle. My daughter just smiles and giggles and she's, "Don't worry, Daddy. Mommy's coming soon. Just keep fighting." I honestly broke down into tears when that happened because, see, my grandfather, yes, my father's in prison, but my grandfather, he was my dad figure in my life. Had it not been for him, I'd probably be a very different person today. I fully acknowledge that. And whenever I'm out and about, taking on these kind of jobs, he's been known to pop his head up from time to time. In fact, I have audio recordings saved somewhere from a film I did. It's called Conspiracy Cases Wasp Woman or something. I think that's the name they're going with it. It's in film festival circuits right now, so when I hear something, you'll hear something about when that officially comes out. But I actually have old recordings from, because it was sort of a investigation mockumentary series that someone local was trying to put together, and they thought having a legitimate investigator on board would make things interesting. Well, my grandfather was apparently coming out, wanted to see this stuff for himself, and the audio tapes were trying to say, yeah, that's my grandson. You can talk to him. He was essentially acting as my spiritual liaison to get the alleged spirits in that location to come forward. And he's very well known about the situations at hand. He expressed his frustrations. But even then, he still stuck it through. Same thing with my family. I came to the realization that the reason why they made themselves known is because they knew I was going to need help. They saved me that day when I tried to take my own life, and on a few other occasions after that where my life was literally on the line, from medical emergencies, organ failure, to car accidents. Didn't necessarily have to be anything supernatural related, but they tried to show themselves. They knew that if there was anything that was going to wake me up to keep fighting, for lack of a better word, is knowing that a child was in danger. That I would step up to the plate and not give in, especially if it was my own kid. And I'm grateful for that. Our mission operated together. We all interlinked because we knew that we were going to be going into situations that each other was all we had. I mean, growing up, I didn't necessarily, you get told that people don't care. You start to believe those types of things, but that's far from the truth. People do care. They want to see good things happen. And sometimes that may manifest as getting pissed off because someone is focusing on trying to hurt you. Well, and believe me, my wife, she knows how to throw down when she has to. It's kind of hot. This woman actually stepped up to try to tell me that a girl I was having issues with wasn't being faithful. Going as far as, once again, letting me use her eyes to see that the girl I was seeing at the time was cheating on me. Even helped make sure that I see a specific tattoo to identify the individual. She knew I was going to need that information, and it came in handy. Stung like a son of a bitch when it happened, but at least I was finally able to get closure on the ordeal. So, I do not hold resentment towards anybody that tried to cause harm. I do hold resentment when I know that they are purposely hurting others. And I know, and I've started working on breaking my ties. It's like, you know what? I've got other things to do. I'm not tied to you. And people got upset when I started, they started saying they wanted to leave, but apparently they wanted me to beg them to stay. Not healthy. It's not. I know what my purpose is for coming down. I know what I want to do. I know what I'm going to do. Now, every now and then, when it comes to the spiritual side of things, we had an individual on the main show. His name was Dave Bender. Something he said really stuck out was that sometimes you may not catch anything on equipment, but knowing that for the client, for the people we help, sometimes the satisfaction that somebody was actually willing to hear them out was enough to help them, to help get their story heard. And that's what I'm trying to build Bonkers around. Is to give everybody a chance to tell their story without any corporate assholes trying to impede progress. I mean, something that just happened to me not too long ago. I've been publishing personal journals because I've also come to realize that if I'm going to understand my situation and start actually progressing, I'm going to have to stop trying to keep it to myself, tell the story. Obviously, do it within certain parameters to respect privacy and all that. But still, sometimes hearing the story that someone else managed to power through what you went through helps. So that's been part of my ordeal, is to publish my stories. I'm working on a full-length novel that goes into my situation, appropriately titled, I Know You Won't Believe Me. Nice little catchy sort of challenge title. But anyway, with these personal journals I published, for some reason they were getting blocked. Allegedly for some sort of copyright infringement. These were my personal journals. I did release one book. Let me see if I can grab it here. Here's one of the versions of it, involving a company that I no longer have affiliation with for damn good reason. You can find this on just about any online bookstore. Basically, for those of you saying I need to let go, this is what I did. It's a collection of book letters to my younger self addressing key moments. Now, I will say this was written before the revelations that my situation was tied to aliens, so if for those of you wanting more information about my galactic exploits, you're going to have to wait a little bit for new videos or the final book to come out. As my journals, they're available through Kindle Vela. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's kind of a releasing chapter by chapter situation. I know there's some of you who cringe on the idea of going through Amazon, and Amazon does screw over people when it comes to royalties. They do it to authors, musicians. I'm told people who use the Amazon Prime Video on Demand platform as well have experienced it. If I'm not mistaken, there was actually a class action lawsuit a few years back. But it was meant to get the story out there, and that's something I've tried to a lot of these resources I put together to everything I've worked on to go as far and wide as possible. So maybe someone who needs it will find it. I'm also releasing a journal, which should be coming out next Friday. And it's a journal you can actually write in yourself. There'll be an ebook version that kind of gives you more of a template. So basically, it's to guide people who may be interested in going into this type of research. Maybe they've had experiences of their own, or they're wanting to go into actually investigating these types of reports. I wanted to try to put out resources to try to help people. I kept it as simple as possible. I even put in an investigation report template for those of you who want to go into research and going into public locations. So it's real handy. I admit in the book that I use certain individuals who seem to have a lot of issues with comprehension as kind of my guinea pigs, and they were able to use it without a hitch. So it's easy to use. It covers all the bases. It'll be out May 5th. So just watch for any of the Bald and Bonkers channels. Now, why do I want to put this stuff out? So like I said, there's a lot of you who've been asking how they can document their own stuff. Why can't I get photos of the beings I interact with? I know like Elena and Danny Henderson, they've gotten similar questions. It's like, how can they try to document it? Because we want to have some sort of tangible evidence, right? So, because it can help if you're still having doubts when you're actually able to have something physical that you can hold in your hand, you don't have to try to rely on blind faith all that much. You can just say, yes, this is happening. This is how I know. And like I said before, there just comes a point. I dealt with so many people trying to shoot me down, and I kind of developed a bit of an obsessive habit to start prepping evidence like I'm getting ready to go to court. Because I'll be honest. I've always been the type, if I know that I'm not wrong about something and people go to fight me, I've had kind of a nasty habit about trying to prove myself right. I know, something I got to get rid of. I'm working on it, okay? But I don't like when people go to talk about these types of things and they start spreading the wrong information because they either don't care to check themselves, or I don't know. It's like I've always been taught, if you're going to do something right. And if you're going to tell a story about something that happened, get the fucking facts right. If you don't know, just say it. You don't know. So that way you can start looking into finding out what happened. But anyway, some of you have been asking me how to try to document your experiences. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the sound quality is probably a little different with this video. That is because I'm not actually using this microphone. No. There's a couple different tricks you can actually use to try to document if you believe that you have spirits in your house late at night, or you're dealing with some sort of abduction scenarios, or you're getting contacted where you think something's happening but you don't necessarily remember, or something's happening but you're wanting to try to get something tangible to prove your story. Now, some of you have been wondering how I was able to get the voice recordings of my family. Well, believe it or not, you don't need any fancy equipment. Chances are you have enough already in your house. You don't have to go out and buy some big fancy gear worth thousands of dollars. You buy something that you may as well may as well be a car payment. You can use stuff you probably already have in your house, like your smartphone. Just as an example, Elena was pretty ecstatic when I told her that I was able to actually capture voices of my family. And she and others have asked how I did it. So, I have an Android smartphone, a Samsung Galaxy A52. Here's the app I use. And try to bring it up to the camera here. It's called Dream Voices. It's initially meant to record you talking in your sleep. But it's also going to pick up on other things going on. Now, this method works best if you live in a relatively quiet area. Maybe you don't necessarily have pets around that would like to cause havoc in the middle of the night. My cat's over there licking herself. But still, it's something. Because if you go to try to photograph these things, a lot of the times technology starts to fail on you and nothing gets saved. There's a voice recording that I managed to catch that I think I fucking lost, and I'm pissed at myself for that, but it happens. Where I got my wife's voice saying, "We are always watching over you." And it had kind of a mix of a French, sort of Gaelic kind of accent, which is how a lot of them kind of speak. So, like I said, it's Dream Voices. You can look around, see if you can find anything else that helps you. See, like there's a little list of recordings there. Play with the settings, see what works for your situation. And it's not going to be a one and done thing. It's very unlikely you're going to catch something on your first try. Give it some time. You'll be able to do it. Another thing I like to use, actually, believe it or not, see with smartphones, you can get apps to help do audio recordings and stuff like that. But if you want to try to do something that will actually help you hear things that are a little bit more quiet, you may have to look into your smartphone's accessibility settings. What do I mean? I'll show you. Let's see. And you hold it up to the camera. See, right about. Yeah, show it. You look towards my daughter's shoulder here. You'll see what looks like a little stick figure. That's the amplify amble sound feature. Essentially, it's supposed to help you use your smartphone kind of like a hearing aid if you have like headphones in. Or, in my case, the reason why this is actually being used as the microphone, see, if you can get yourself like a little auxiliary cable. These are the ones that kind of look like the ends of headbuds, the little parts that you plug in to like listen to music and stuff. Or you can use a Bluetooth headset when you're listening on your own. But if you want to connect it to like a computer, you're going to need an auxiliary cable, which looks like this, but on both ends. You can get them for like a couple bucks. They're pretty cheap. How do you know if your phone has this type of feature? Well, like I said, it's going to depend on the type of device you have. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try to go into your settings. It's going to be under something like accessibility, meant for people that may be hard of seeing, hard of hearing. Let's see, where is it? You're going to want to see something that looks like that, accessibility. Then we go, not that one. Hearing enhancements. Then it's going to say amplify ample sound. And it'll give you an option to turn it on here. One thing you can do with it is like if you have a pair of Bluetooth headphones, you can accidentally leave your phone in one room and see if people are talking about you behind your back, because these things are powerful. Play around with the settings there. Careful if you're the type to leave it on because you think you're going to do a lot more of this. Because if you're the type that tends to fat finger stuff and say, like, I work night shifts, so kind of help me stay awake. I like to, listen to music while I'm working. Technically, I'm not supposed to, but it's a night shift. No one cares. If you're the type to fat finger stuff, and you got headphones, and you may accidentally turn it on. Or if you're in your car and you connect to Bluetooth and you turn it on, you're going to get a very noisy feedback loop. Another really handy thing that I've used myself to try to go into communication is the CE5 app by Dr. Stephen Greer. It costs like $10, but if you go that way, you're not going to have to worry about ads. So see right here, it come on. See, kind of has like 3 circles in a triangle formation all connected. You go into that, it actually gives you instructions on how to meditate, how to certain frequencies to play, to where you can actually make contact with these beings. And it works all the time. If you're someone who has a psychic disposition, I'm just going to warn you now, it may cause some effects that you don't expect. So these are just things to experiment with. Next video, I'll try to do an appropriate video to do communication, so that way you can try it for yourself. But technically, you don't even need the CE5 app. It's just a technology boost. You can do it all on your own. The main thing to remember is that just try to find a place of calmness to focus inward. Because the people you're going to want to try to contact, they're going to have a soul connection to you. And they're going to hear it when you call. It never fails. Basically, just try to get into a meditative state. And imagine a phone ringing on the inside that can only connect to people that are connected to you. Pick up that phone. See who answers. I'll tell you a little quick story before I go. I tried a little experiment one night. I got to thinking, it would be kind of handy if I could see for myself if someone else is experiencing this. So being that my wife and kids are my wife and kids, we're entangled at a quantum level. We can communicate fairly well, pretty easily. And we can almost sense when someone else is having issues. There was this one night, I was driving in my car, heading to work, and I just got to think, I said, hey, I got to thinking, when you're driving down the kind of the highway, it's night, it's calm, not a lot of things going on. You tend to kind of zone out a little bit, not enough to hopefully crash. I got to thinking, it's like, I started doing that meditation bit, looking inward and seeing who answers the internal phone. I sent out this intention, this message, saying, hey, if it's true that you guys are going to be coming down soon, can you do me a favor? My son was the one that asked. He's like, sure thing, Dad, what's up? I tell him, if it's true that you guys are coming down, you do me a favor and go say hi to your grandma, my mother. My son goes, sure, Dad, why? It's because if you guys are going to be coming down, I'm going to need to explain to her why her grandchildren look almost like they could be the same age as their father. They laughed and it's like, sure thing, Dad. It's like, how do you want us to do it? Just however safe for you. Like, she works a lot, so you probably try to catch her when she is going to work one night. So, you know what, Dad? Sure thing. We'll make it happen. Said, all right, so I love you guys. Stay safe. Went to work, focus on my thing. Went about my day. About 24 hours later, I'm doing a live stream. My mother's on her way to work. She sends me a text saying, hey, this is probably going to sound stupid, but I thought I just saw a green light just hovering. When I tried to take a picture, it disappeared. Mm-hmm. My wife, she actually perks up and said, so, she saw us? She's like, yep, looks like she saw you. I don't think she realizes the full thing yet. My wife just says, that's to be expected. Well, do you believe us now that we're coming? Said, yeah, I do. It's not that I didn't doubt you, it's just that I've been waiting so long for this. I want to be 100% sure, When you establish a line of trust with these beings, because they're not just going to come down on a whim, they're going to have to trust you. And the reason why I picked my mother to be kind of a test subject, as messed up as that kind of sounds, I needed somebody that my family would be personally motivated to want to see. So, what kid doesn't want to go see their grandparents? These things work. And next video, I'll probably do a more in-depth how-to on how to do it, as well as some ways to protect you, because I know some people are freaking out saying, oh, you don't want to do that, you don't want to do that, negative beings might hijack. Yes, they can, but there's ways to protect yourself. Looking inward and reaching out directly to your soul family, that signal can't be hacked. If anything, it scares the hell out of the negative ones. Because, fun fact about me, there's been instances where my family and I stepped into my old role as Alarian, a scientist / medical personnel for the Galactic Federation of Worlds. We've abducted individuals to get them help to break free from certain attachments. And there's eyewitnesses that remember seeing me. And within a couple of weeks of our intervention, they're completely better. I'll go into that later. I want to say much love to you all. Stay safe out there. The world's going to be crazy, but as long as you follow through with what's true to your heart, you're going to power through no matter what happens. See you next time.